Nigeria walked out from under the British flag as one of Africa's proudest new nations. Within 7 years, that same nation will be at war with itself. Not a war against an outside enemy, but a war between neighbors, between soldiers who had once served in the same barracks, between a government determined to hold a country together and a people who believe staying meant dying. This is the story of the Biafra War, not the version told by one side, not the version that erases the other, but the version that tries as honestly as possible to hold both truths at once. To understand why Nigeria broke, you have to understand how it was built. In 1914, the British colonial administrator, Frederick Lugard, merged two separate protectorates, the Northern and Southern Protectorate, into a single territory for administrative convenience. It was never designed as one nation. It was designed as one filing cabinet, and inside that filing cabinet sat over 250 ethnic groups, but three dominated politically: the Hausa Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the west, and the Igbo in the east. Each region had its own government, its own police, its own path to power, and when independence came in 1960, this three-legged structure, which never balanced to begin with, was left to hold up an entire country. The cracks showed almost immediately: regional rivalries, disputed census figures, accusations of rigged elections in the West in 1965. Nigeria's First Republic was already buckling before a single shot was fired. On January 15, 1966, a group of young army majors, several of them were Igbo, staged a coup. They assassinated the Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, along with the Premier of the North, Ahmadu Bello, and the Premier of the West, Samuel Akintola. Notably, no senior Igbo political leader was killed. Whether this was a genuine national uprising against corruption or an ethnically lopsided plot, it is still argued till today. What is not argued is how it was perceived, because many in the north saw it as an Igbo takeover. General Aguiyi Ironsi, an Igbo officer, took power in the aftermath, not as a plotter, but as the most senior officer standing. But still, the perception hardened. 6 months later, in July 1966, northern officers staged a counter coup and Aguiyi Ironsi was killed. And in the months that followed, pogroms broke out across northern Nigeria. Organized killings of Igbo residents living outside the eastern region. Estimate of the dead ranged from 8,000 to over 30,000. Hundreds of thousands fled to the east, carrying only what they could. This is the moment the East stopped seeing Nigeria as a home. Lieutenant Colonial Ojukwu, the military governor of the Eastern region, demanded guarantees of safety and autonomy for his people. Negotiations, including the Aburi Accord in Ghana in January 1967, briefly promised a federal structure. Both sides agreed to it. Both sides later accused the other of failing to implement it. General Yakubu Gowon, who had become Nigeria's head of state after the counter coup, moved instead to divide the country into 12 states, a move the East saw as an attempt to strip the oil-rich region of its power before it could break away. And oil matters a lot in Nigeria. The eastern region of the country sat on the bulk of Nigeria's oil reserves. Reserves the young nation and the World Oil Company had every reason not to let go quietly. On May 30th, 1967, Ojukwu declared the eastern region an independent nation, and he called it the Republic of Biafra. 6 weeks later, Nigeria declared war. The federal government called it a police action to restore Nigerian unity. It expected the conflict naturally to last for weeks, but instead it lasted 30 months. Biafran forces, though outgone, made early advances, even pushing into the Midwest. But federal Nigeria had the numbers, the arms, and eventually the blockade. By January 1970, Biafra could no longer hold. Ojukwu flew into exile, and his deputy, Philip Effiong, formally surrendered on January 15, 1970, declaring in a broadcast that still echoes in Nigerian memory that Biafra would rejoin the Federation. Gowon's government immediately adopted a policy summarized in 3 words: no victor, no vanquish. On paper, there will be reconciliation, not retribution. But in practice, the reality for many Igbo returning home was far harder, including a controversial currency policy that limited how much of their pre-war savings they could reclaim, and a land decree in the whole eastern region whose effects are still debated today. Nigeria never fought a second civil war, but the Biafra War never fully left the national conversation either. Movements like MASSOP and more recently IPOB have revived calls for Igbo self-determination, which in turn were met with heavy government crackdowns. Ask someone in the southeast about Biafra today, and you may hear talk of marginalization, a sense that the region has never been fully reintegrated into Nigeria's political and economic life. But ask someone in government or elsewhere in the country, and you may hear that the war is settled history, that reopening it only threatens a fragile unity. But both of these things can be said sincerely, and that is what makes this history hard, and what makes an honest telling of it necessary. Biafra is not simply a story about war that was won and lost. It is a story about what a country owes the people inside it, and what happens when that question goes unanswered for too long. If you love content like this, please don't forget to hit on the red subscribe button, and also drop your thoughts about what you think about the Biafra War. And until I see you in my next video, remain blessed.